Thank you very much, Your Royal Majesty, King Dakolo. We are really pleased that you're here and you are being able to present and share with us the Ekpetiama impasse, the conflict that the chiefs in your kingdom, the Ekpetiama kingdom, in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria, experiencing. And I'm sure our colleagues here have a lot of questions for you because I believe that in March 2016, especially based on what you said, that the conflict is also as a result of the oil, the bloom of the oil and gas in the Niger Delta area. In March 2016, in the West here, the media presented us with images of the devastation and destruction that the Niger Delta Avengers were really involved in, destroying oil tanks and oil facilities and installations, which was, in fact, a big concern for people in the West, those who have oil facilities in the Niger Delta area. Denis, I want to invite you here as well because many of us have questions for you, Denis. You presented us with a very powerful images about the genocide in Rwanda, and you also talked about the Gacaca courts, the Abunnzi programs, which has now been incorporated into the constitution, the Rwandan constitution. And Denis, I also want to note that in 2005, I think, toward the end of the beginning of the Abunnzi, the European Center for Conflict Prevention led a project in Rwanda, and not only in Rwanda, in many other countries, documenting traditional systems of conflict resolution, religious systems of conflict resolution. Rwanda was one of them. The project was led by Paul Tongaren, and Paul Tongaren and many other colleagues of his produced a book which is entitled People Building Peace. And in that book, Denis, there was a critique that women were excluded somehow during the Gacaca court processes at the beginning. And I'm happy you noted that the Abunnzi was highly in favor of women, which came afterwards. So those are some concerns that you want to address. I'm going to leave that right now for you to think about while I take questions from you. We have only 10 minutes for questions. Please raise up your hand. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and to whom your question is directed. I will start from Professor Art.
Okay, Art Lerman, professor at Mercy College and mediator at the Bronx-based IMCR. Just one quick comment as somebody from studying comparative politics and studying comparative revolutions and revolutionary justice. Usually typical revolutionary justice is wipe them all out, kill them, bloodshed, and this is an amazing counterexample.
Thank you. Denis, please note that question, and I will return to you. Here you go.
My name is Reverend Jude Isiaye. I want to direct my question to the traditional ruler. You gave a very comprehensive lecture, and it's more academic. You said you are not an academician, but it's an academic lecture. I want to ask you, because this Niger Delta crisis keeps on reoccurring. And I know that the chiefs have played a lot of roles in trying to bring it to a total stop. I want to ask you, what do you think are some of the challenges being faced by the chiefs? Because they are closer to the youths, they are closer to the people. What are some of the challenges being faced by the chiefs in trying to secure a total peace in the Niger Delta region?
Thank you. I will go to you.
Thank you. I am happy that our university trained Denis and today has provided a very good lecture. I have one question. In one of my work which I presented yesterday, I made reference to 2 articles, and they are all referring to what you are presented. They are written by Martha Mutisi. One is on Gacaca, the other one is on Abunzi. The conclusion she made in these 2 articles is that there were too much intervention, state intervention, in this traditional system of conflict resolution. I am happy that you participate in the process. Please help me to clear out that conclusion.
Thank you. Gender equity.
Thank you. And thank you very much for the 2 presentations. I have one question for each speaker. First of all, Denis, you talked about the fact that there was note-taking in the Gacaca processes. What were they doing with the notes afterwards? And I'm asking this because in the Uganda situation in the LC courts, there was a complaint that the courts work and serve the people, but there is no precedence that comes through, so there is no consistency in the way that decisions are made in the court. So I just wanted to find out what was the case with the Gacaca courts and maybe even the Abunzis. And then to the king, I was wondering, I'm not sure I truly understand the structure of the chiefs in relation to the traditional kingdom as a whole. So if we look at our situation in South Africa, the chiefs would always fall under the kingdom, and therefore when there are disputes, the chiefs would have to go to the kingdom as a first instance. Why would they have opted to go to the court and not come to the kingdom?
All right. So I will have to come to you after.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Grace Umezurike from Nigeria. I'm talking to Denis. Your presentation was wonderful and quite expository. And I was wondering because when you started, you kept saying before the closure of the Gacaca. And during the presentation, I was wondering within me why the closure of such a wonderful traditional court. And at the conclusion, I saw where you wrote that because the number of cases left untried can be handled by the court. And that got me worried. Is it that the Gacaca was somehow unconstitutional? Or, I just want to know, because for me, I think the Gacaca, and given the wonderful work they've done in Rwanda in a very short period, I think it could have existed side by side the conventional courts. So is there any other reason for the closure, or just that the number of cases were limited, remaining were limited? Thank you.
So one last question for the king. For the king? No, I want one last question for the king. Okay. Make it brief, please.
For the king.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. King, we thank you so much. Just a question is that we see peace is in Botswana and South Africa, where oil is also a wealth. And in fact, oil is a blessing there. And what do they do that is needed in Nigeria for oil not to become a curse?
Thank you. Last question.
Thank you. Question for the King. My name is Ismail Muvingi. I'm from Nova Southeastern University. The area you are governing, you are in the epicenter of the oil conflicts, and one of the issues that has come up is what are called guerrilla youths who were disrupting the oil production in protest of the way the oil was being handled. Is the king, the traditional leadership, at all involved in trying to help these youths because they were criminalized, so that they don't end up as the former prisoners with records, and then they get obviously into even more trouble? And if so, how are you doing it? How are you addressing the youths who were accused of being criminals for disrupting the oil production?
Thank you. Now I'm going to return to you, King Dakolo and Denis. If you could address all the questions in 5 minutes.
So the king says I begin. What the professor said was not a question, right? It was a comment, which is okay, and I thank you so much. What Dr. Magoti said, thank you again for training me. But about this author, Martha, I have also used her work, and she really masters the two systems, Gacaca and the Abunnzi. But in the context of these two systems, it's like, I would say, for those who have children, if you father or mother a child, the child will keep your child even during the child's old age. So Gacaca courts were established through the efforts of the government. Why? In the interest of the people, the government took initiative and Gacaca courts were established. Therefore, there is that responsibility that was identified by the government, because even there was an organ that was created, the National Service of the Gacaca courts, to make sure that the Gacaca courts, one, have logistics, they have what to use in their courts, but they are also advised. When I began my work at the Gacaca courts, I was a legal officer, and knowing that the Gacaca courts were occupied by ordinary people who did not study law, but just elected on the basis of their integrity, they needed to be trained and they needed to be advised. So the government was supposed to provide that. We couldn't see maybe the possibility of privatizing the Gacaca courts to another person who could do it on behalf of the government. What would be a problem would be accusation of influencing the decisions. Otherwise, the decisions were made to the extent that even when the National Service of Gacaca courts identified that there was maybe something towards miscarriage of justice, there was appeal in the same system. There was even a review of judgments in the same system. So to me, I think what was done was not all that perfect, we could say, of course, as an academic, but the fact that I was in my presentation of a few minutes, I mentioned I was telling a success story. There could be time also to share what was not a success. It's there. For example, Gacaca courts currently, up to this time, criticized for not having dealt with reparation of the victims of the genocide and even survivors of the genocide against the Tutsi. That one is a critic that one can see. About the Abunzi, the way they began, maybe some of the work that was done by writers like Martha are giving fruits, because Abunzi committees and the amendments I have shown are bringing, the last amendment was done in 2016, they are bringing better working conditions of the committees. So what you read, I don't think she has written something after 2016. What I know is it's before. Maybe the discussions have led to something again positive. Then Grace, the secret behind that name is that my wife is also called Grace. And most of us will repeat that word, especially those who are faithful, every day. So Grace, I'm happy for your support, that my presentation was good. Gacaca courts were not supposed to be operational in other affairs other than genocide, because the primary responsibility was to deal with genocide cases, as I introduced, and that was even the law. That is what was provided. Genocide as a crime cannot have time limits. So even after 100 years, if someone is identified to have participated in genocide, suspected, will be tried. But also the working condition of the Gacaca courts, the working conditions were also not supposed to be kept. You know, everyone participating in the Gacaca courts at least once a week, so you can see the lives of the people. You can't hold the lives of the people in such a setting for all the life of the country. So what was necessary was done. If there are other cases of the genocide against the Tutsi, they are channeled, because there are not many. You know, by the time the Gacaca courts were established, the cases were very many. Too many to be handled by the ordinary courts. But now that maybe there can be 2 or 3 cases to be tried, then the ordinary courts can try such cases. And they are not even many. There is a replacement. Gacaca courts worked very well, but also I would say they may not be the best in all circumstances. For example, genocide was perpetrated when the criminals were not hiding. In the other criminal situations, a criminal will not hide. During the genocide, people were even showing off how many people they have killed, showing even to the rest how they have killed those people and so forth. So it was easy to get truth about genocide. There are even some cases that were not brought to Gacaca courts, like the planners. They weren't tried by the Gacaca courts. So currently we have Abunnzi, who are dealing with not criminal cases, but with these other civil matters, which usually contribute to the backlog of the cases before the ordinary courts. So that is the replacement, not having Gacaca courts and then Abunzi. So Abunzi, they are also traditional working and in civil matters. About taking notes, I think when the project about Gacaca documentation gets finished, because there is the Aegis Trust is an organization from UK and the National Commission for the Fight Against Genocide are working on a very big project to have everything that was documented during the Gacaca courts to be treated like digitalized and so forth. So we did have about 15,000 benches that we are trying, and each bench was writing, taking notes. We have all that information documented somewhere. And we did have, of course, these notes from very many judges. We did have 169,442 judges, and maybe if they were taking notes, there is this information. But the information that is mainly kept for documentation is the information that was noted during the time of collection of information, but also during the hearings. Each hearing was noted, and that information is available. So it will be there as a very big Gacaca documentation center as part of the departments that are in the National Commission for the Fight Against Genocide.
Thank you, Your Highness.
Yes, so thank you so much. I have 4 questions here. 3 are similar. One stands out, the one from Knox. So the structure is similar. You have the chiefs in the community, and then you have the king of the kingdom. So the Ibenanaowei is the king, he's in charge of the entire kingdom. But, you know, after colonialism, the Western system sleep with us. So in our beds, once you come out of your house, in your bedroom, everywhere, there's also the Western system. So there are police stations everywhere as well, and courts around. And so if you have a choice whether to report to your father, to your family head, or to just quickly run to court because your chicken is missing. So it was the choice of those who were aggrieved, okay, to either go to court as a place of first instance or to report to the community leaders around, like for the king. In this particular case, they actually also approached those who were higher beyond the community level. But they did not get justice as far as they were concerned. The outcome wasn't favorable. And the bottom line in all of these is that sincerity of purpose. If those who are handling your matter are not quite interested in an honest outcome, most likely it is going to fail. So you must, just like in normal mediation, you must have faith in those who are doing it and be sure that they are not biased. So if they are not biased and they unveil the situation properly, you are bound to say, okay, if not so, no wahala, go take them, you know. So that is about you. The rest is oil crisis. There's this song, I don't know if you are familiar with it, by Peter Tosh. There will be no peace until there is equal rights and what? Justice. Now in the Niger Delta, there has not been equal rights and justice. The oil majors are all international players. Shell, Chevron, Elf, Mobil, and so on and so forth. They are all international majors who are operating in those places. If you come to my palace, you will actually be privileged of sitting on top of the largest gas field in Africa. However, that whole area is someone's oil block. I don't know if you are not marveled. My home, my kingdom, and another kingdom is someone's oil block. Someone that is somewhere, perhaps up north in Nigeria, and he is working now with the corporations to exploit oil in that area without the community people. So there's, of course, yesterday too, we established that there's also double standard. So what they do in Europe, what they do in Aberdeen, and what perhaps they do in is it Botswana, Angola, may not be what they do in Nigeria. So in Nigeria, they are actually doing it the way they want it, divide and rule. The community people do not have access to this oil wealth. They do not have the oil blocks. They don't even have the oil contracts. In fact, they are not even employed by the oil companies. Yes, it is that bad. So, the young people of the Niger Delta who grew up in this animosity have learned over time. Most of them are young people, 20-something, 25 or so, 18 years and so on and so forth. And they've had access to bombs. And all these bombs, there is no bomb factory in Nigeria. There is no dynamite factory in Nigeria. The oil companies use dynamite to do the exploitation, during exploration. So all these dynamites come from the oil companies. So that's the double standard. They taught these guys how to use them. And of course, they make a lot of money once there is crisis. Security money, even while kidnapping went on. It was good for them. If before they were making maybe $10,000 a month, they were now making 100 because they were giving them money to make sure that the operations were going hitch-free. So that has been the problem. So that is the extent to which the oil is a curse in Nigeria. There is no sincerity of purpose. There is double standard. What is good for the goose elsewhere is not good for the gander in Nigeria. So the youth in the Niger Delta, yes. So the youths of the Niger Delta are feeling that, and more so, you are not even listening to them. So when they protest, when they ask for an audience, you don't grant them an audience. So what do? They grab somebody, they grab Denis, and then now you want Denis's life, so you give them audience. So almost for everything in the Niger Delta, every progress that has been made in the last 60 years in the Niger Delta has been out of the young men going against the rules and taking their destiny in their hands, and then the government listens. Even when Amnesty was inaugurated some years ago during Yaradua, oil exportation in Nigeria has been over 2 million barrels per day forever. But during Yaradua's time, the Niger Delta youths, that was when perhaps you heard so much about them, ensured that the oil exportation dropped to less than 700,000 barrels per day, which was like an all-time low. The government was frustrated. And then they said, okay, amnesty, and let's train them. There are no schools in the place, no good water, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, this same money is, like I said, just in my backyard, 60,000 barrels multiplied by the current price of oil. You see how much it is. It's well over $600 million per day. If you do that for 1 year, it's so much. 1 year, that's about $6 billion per annum from that place alone. So you can see what we're talking about. But it is not used for the people. So in connivance with the oil, the transnationals, you heard of Abacha loot, I guess. You all read about Abacha loot. Even last year, even this year, they still brought back some of his loot. This was when he was head of state more than 20 years ago. Okay? It was oil money he took that the transnational companies and the first world countries, essentially, were hoarding in America, in Switzerland, in Britain, everywhere, in some island somewhere. So that is the reason. Oil sabotage. How are you handling, the youths? Yes, so the constraints for the chiefs, for example, is that because the chiefs are not constitutionally recognized in that sense, okay? The Constitution has deliberately or carefully tried to exempt the chiefs from active roles. In fact, the reason why the chiefs are still there is that they are so traditional that you can't wish them off. So when push comes to shove, the government runs back to the chiefs, to the kings, for resolution of crisis. Because they know exactly what is going on. But you have not empowered them to either do A or do B. In fact, when they advise you that this oil money shouldn't be so, you won't heed. So it is usually when there's crisis, you now come and say, oh, chief, please, can you help? King, can you help? Your boys are becoming so heady, can you help? And so on and so forth. And because the chiefs or kings have always wanted growth for the people, they've been obliging. But no sooner than they solve today's problem, and you've gone to poo-poo again somewhere, and there's a fresh crisis. So we've been going round and round and round. But I'll use this opportunity to also call on the world of conscience. Yes, particularly the developed countries, to sanction their companies. Because it's these oil majors that are doing it. They go there and do everything against what they do here in America and what they do in Aberdeen and what they do in The Hague. They do everything against it. If you go to, if you come to Nigeria and you're taken to some places, you will weep. It will be as bad as you going somewhere and seeing children being butchered, literally, in terms of oil pollution and gas pollution. Less than 500 meters from the palace, there is a gas flare. And it's been there for over 10 years. Meanwhile, gas flaring has been outlawed in Nigeria. But they still give licenses, exemptions, to almost every company to flare gas. I think that the discussion can continue after now. Thank you so much for your audience.
Thank you, King Dakolo. Thank you, Denis. Honestly, every year, the United Nations brings world leaders, presidents from all over the world, to the General Assembly in New York. And they share their own version and present their own stories to the world, and that's what we know. And now we hear from people who are closer to the people at the grassroots level, and we hear their own account of what actually is going on, of reality. And that is why we as an organization, we want to bring traditional rulers, kings, queens, closer to us under the umbrella of the World Elders Forum, so that we will be able to know what is actually going on at the grassroots level. We hope you're going to be around today at 6 o'clock after a cocktail party that begins at 4 to attend the inauguration of the World Elders Forum by the King Dakolo. Thank you very much. We're going to be moving on to the next panel, which, of course, will be going.